All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our BCBA practice questions series, where we're going through another set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Make sure to check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. When you pass your exam, please let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. Your daughter comes home and is now saying, I'm sorry after dropping items or bumping into someone. She is also saying, I'm sorry at times that are not as appropriate or socially valid. You want to address the I'm sorry behavior and make a change so that it is more socially valid. As the behavior analyst, where might you start? In this situation, and in most situations, pretty much all situations on the exam, assume you are the behavior analyst, right? Or at least you're training to become one. So, where are you going to start? Well, what does the question mean about where you want to start? Well, they're referring to this idea of social validity. When we talk about social validity, what do we mean? We mean behavior that is meaningful, it's impactful, it matters in the client's life and the life of people around them. So the behavior in question is, I'm sorry. Now, initially, it doesn't seem like an issue, right? Because the daughter is saying, I'm sorry after dropping items or bumping into people. That seems okay. It seems appropriate. However, she's now saying sorry when it's not appropriate or socially valid. So essentially, we could say the behavior is overgeneralizing. So if you want to simplify this, the question is essentially asking, how do we stop the daughter from overgeneralizing, I'm sorry? A, provide no verbal consequence for when I'm sorry is said at inappropriate times. Okay, we could do that, right? We could provide no verbal consequence when I'm sorry is said at inappropriate times, essentially putting I'm sorry on extinction. Now, do we know if verbal consequences are maintaining it? Maybe, maybe not, but it is a strategy. It's where we might start. So A seems okay. Let's keep reading. B, reprimand your daughter when she says, I'm sorry at times that are not socially valid. Now, we're starting here. So do we want to start with a punishment or do we want to start with extinction? Well, we'd rather attempt the extinction first rather than the punishment. So A looks better than B. C, begin reinforcing my fault as well as I'm sorry throughout the day. Teaching my fault, teaching a different response in the same response class, isn't necessarily going to help with the problem of saying I'm sorry at inappropriate times. So C doesn't really address the issue of saying I'm sorry and making it socially valid. It simply teaches a response in the same response class. So A is still better. D, start shaping I'm sorry for doing that so that your daughter starts using more complete sentences. Well, it's not the phrasing that's the issue, right? The issue is that it's being used at inappropriate times. So, where we might start if we want to make this more socially valid or essentially stop overgeneralization is A, put the behavior on extinction, provide no verbal consequence for when I'm sorry is said at inappropriate times. So, this is a pretty challenging question because there's a lot going on and the answer choices are a little difficult. But we're going to start with reinforcement over punishment. We don't need to teach a different response that's going to serve the same function. And we don't need to shape extended sentences because that's not addressing the issue. We might start with extinction given the answer choices here. A local bar is creating a trivia night that will happen every Thursday. The local bar is going to use a dependent group contingency to score each question, and teams will be comprised of 5 players each. There will be 4 rounds with 1 bonus round and a total of 25 questions asked throughout the night. Based on this information, which scenario describes how the questions could be scored? Question is concerned with how the questions are going to be scored. Now, it's pretty open-ended, right? So we have to really think about what the question has given us in terms of information. So far, we know there's a trivia night going on, and the local bar is going to use a dependent group contingency to score each question. Well, here is the key information. The type of contingency used to score the questions. We're using a group contingency, meaning there will be teams, and we know the teams will be made up of 5 players each. So if we have a team of 5, how would you use a dependent group contingency for a team of 5? Well, you would pick a hero, right? Where one person out of 5 would be responsible for reinforcement for the whole entire group, or maybe 2 people. A small subset of that 5 are going to be responsible for engaging in the response to earn reinforcement for the whole group. And so if there's 4 rounds and a total of 25 questions, how are we going to use this dependent group contingency for teams of 5 to score each question. A, the bar will ask a question and the entire team must answer and get the question correctly to score a point. Well, if the entire team must answer the question correctly, that's going to be an interdependent, where all 5 players must get the response correct to get reinforcement. B, every member of the team will answer the question and each member will receive 1 point if they get the question correct. So if each member of the 5 answer a question and each member get a point if they answer the question correctly, that's going to be an independent contingency because each person is responsible for the response and their own consequence. C, each team must choose 1 member to answer each question and will receive a point if the question is answered correctly. Yes, this is what we're looking for. This is our hero procedure, right? We take a team or a group of people and we typically pick 1 person or the hero or a small subset. And now that whole team is reliant on that person getting the response correct for reinforcement. So if this bar wants to use a dependent group contingency, well, then 1 member of each team might have to answer the question for the whole team to get that point scored. Alex is defending his dissertation in front of his committee. Once his presentation is concluded, Alex asks if there are any questions that he can answer. 1 member of his committee appreciates the work, but asks Alex if he thinks any of this applies outside of the clinical setting. What is the committee member asking about? Whose behavior are we looking at here? Always start there. We're looking at the committee member's behavior. But what did the committee member ask? Well, Alex is defending the dissertation. He finishes. He says, are there questions? The member of the committee appreciated the work, but asked Alex if he thinks any of this applies outside of the clinical setting. You'll notice we always start with really narrowing down what the question is asking about. You'll find that if you do that, then you're able to identify key information much more efficiently. We're just looking at what is the committee member asking about. The committee member is asking, does this research or does your dissertation apply outside of the clinical setting? So what is he referring to? What is the committee member referring to? A, internal validity. Well, internal validity is concerned with the study itself, meaning are we controlling the study? Is our independent variable controlling the dependent variable? We're not worried about outside the study. We're worried about just the study itself. Here, we're worried about outside. And so B is a much better answer. External validity is concerned with, do your findings generalize? Will your research extend outside of just the test environment? That's what the committee member wants to know. What about C, inter-observer agreement? The committee member is not asking necessarily about trustworthiness. The committee member is not asking if somebody else verified the data. He's asking about, is your research going to work outside of your one environment? Is there external validity? And then D, treatment fidelity. If the committee member is asking about if he applies outside of the clinical setting and he's already appreciating the work, then treatment fidelity must have been okay, because treatment fidelity implies the treatment was done correctly. If the committee member had asked, can you be more specific about how you did the treatment, because I think there are flaws, that might be more related to treatment fidelity. But what the committee member asked about is, does your research generalize? Does your research work outside of the clinical setting? The committee member is asking about B, external validity. You're only able to identify one reinforcing stimulus to use during session following a preference assessment and a reinforcer assessment with your client. The stimulus in question is a Bluey book. What makes the most sense to do next during sessions? So the question is asking about what we're going to do next and what makes the most sense. So as always, what's the best answer? Well, what do you know so far? We know we identified one reinforcing stimulus, and the stimulus is a Bluey book. That's always a difficult situation to be in. We have one reinforcing stimulus to use for all of our skill acquisition or behavior reduction targets, meaning the threat of satiation is very high. So what do we need to start doing? What do we have to start doing next session? A, only use the book at certain times as reinforcement to not satiate the client. Well, that would be great, but it's our only reinforcing stimulus. So we really don't have a choice right now because we have to reinforce something. And so if this is our only reinforcing stimulus at this time, we don't have much of a choice. So B, begin pairing the book with other stimuli, is where we need to go next. That book needs to be paired with praise, maybe with tokens, with other toys, with other objects. You have to start trying to develop more stimuli that are reinforcing to prevent satiation. C, start using tokens and praise for when you're away from the table. Tokens and praise could be a great idea to pair, but we can't just use tokens and praise if they're not reinforcing. Those are conditioned, right? Remember, our secondary reinforcers. Those have to be created. Those have to be paired. And then D, buy a Dr. Seuss book to use as well. We can't just assume another book is going to work, especially if you've already done the preference and reinforcer assessment. Could you buy the book and engage in pairing? Absolutely. So really what it comes down to is you've got one stimulus. We need to create more. So the next thing we need to start doing is pairing that book with as many other stimuli as possible in order to develop more reinforcing stimuli. Which of the following statements is true about inter-observer agreement? All right, we have a is true question, right? A lot of times you'll get some is false or not true, where you're identifying one that isn't true where three are. This is a is true question, meaning we have one statement that's true, the rest are likely false. And we're talking about inter-observer agreement, where two or more people are gathering the same data and trying to compare and see if they agree. So A, if there is inter-observer agreement on a response, then the data collected must be accurate. Now think about that statement. If there is inter-observer agreement on a response, the data collected must be accurate. What does accuracy mean? Accuracy means we are collecting the true value of what happened, the actual value of what happened. Now, if you and me are collecting data and we both get 6, but the true data or the accurate data is 8, we have inter-observer agreement. It doesn't make our data accurate. So A is false. B, if there is inter-observer agreement on a response, then the recorded values will be the same. Now that is true, because if I record 6 and you record 6, we have inter-observer agreement. So if you have inter-observer agreement on a response, the recorded values are going to be the same. That is the idea behind inter-observer agreement. Doesn't make them accurate, doesn't make them reliable, doesn't make them valid, but they are the same. They're more trustworthy. C, the minimum acceptable inter-observer agreement is 90%. That is not necessarily true. The minimum acceptable inter-observer agreement is not standardized. Many people use 80%, but it depends on what you're recording. If me and you are reading a page, a written page, and we're trying to record spelling errors, our inter-observer agreement really should be near 100% because that's a permanent product that we can look through over and over again. Very easy to record. If you and I are recording ongoing behavior in a challenging setting, inter-observer agreement might be lower. That's much more difficult to capture. And then D, the inter-observer agreement should only be done with the naive observer. A naive observer might be somebody not familiar or trained on the procedure, and that's not true, right? You as the BCBA should be doing your own IOA with your technicians. That's how you're going to verify, right, and increase the trustworthiness of your data. So what is true about inter-observer agreement will be, if there is inter-observer agreement on a response, then the recorded values will be the same. Excellent. Thank you for watching. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. We also have RBT study materials as well on our channel. Be sure to subscribe for all of our updates. When you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.